Hello and welcome to my week 7 discussion board for MPA 545. In this presentation, I'm going to discuss 4 of the resources that I found and then also discuss a department conflict, the dispute resolution design, and then the training and education that goes along with that. This peer review journal article I found by Neil Katz and Linda Flynn is an article that discusses a pilot study conducted in Broward County, Florida, of workplace leaders and conflict management systems. And the study found that there were various reasons for conflict, some obvious, such as lack of resources, poor communication, salary awards, and some less obvious, such as ambiguous reporting lines, extreme behavior regulation, business strategies, and so forth. And the study also found that the most common conflicts were between employee issues and employee manager and supervisor issues. Many of the organizations involved in the study had formal or informal grievance processes in place. However, the majority of the formal processes were these standard processes of completing grievance forms, submitting it to a supervisor, and waiting for a response. And they found that the leadership styles played an important part in successful conflict managers, and that the successful ones promoted collaboration for handling conflict through mediation, negotiation, or facilitation. And also successful organizations had training and on communication skills, conflict resolution training, reflective and active listening trainings, and cross-functional job awareness. The study concluded that the conflict management systems and approaches were not widely used, at least not in Broward County, and that most organizations really rely on traditional methods of dealing or not dealing with conflict. The second source I found was a news article from Gainesville Sun News about the city commissioner of Gainesville, Florida, about to hear staff recommendation about creating an ombudsman office in the city. This proposed ombudsman office would assist in disputes between staff and also between residents too as well. And there was no details of the recommendation in the news article, but I found it interesting how one of the commissioners thought of this position as a redundant position to their current diversity and equity inclusion staff. The article also mentioned that the city of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, had an ombudsman office that provided services to both staff and residents, and that the city of Seattle also had one, but that they just provided services to staff. The city's policy oversight advisor was quoted in the article as saying that the ombudsman office is not typical in public sector and that typically the HR department will handle the conflict. However, she did go on to say that that system works until the dispute involves the HR department. So I thought that was interesting as well. The next source I found was a news article in TechCrunch, which is a news media outlet that focuses on the tech industry. And this article is from 2022, and it talks about a lawsuit against Tesla for racial bias and harassment. And the article discusses the denial of Tesla's motion to dismiss the case. And I found something interesting in that it did discuss how these cases are typically handled in mediation. It would not typically get to this point. However, the mediation would require Tesla to admit to some sort of wrongdoing, which it won't do. What I also found interesting that this article was being reported that there were repetitive grievances filed and nothing was done about it. And at least according to the article, which I would assume is true if we're at this point, but this is an example of an issue that could have been avoided through some sort of internal dispute resolution program or prevented overall through some education and training of staff. The last source I found was a YouTube video called Conflict Resolution Training for Employees for safetyvideos.com. And this is what I thought was an overall good education and training video that can be utilized in a training course. And it covers the kind of the who, what, where, when, why, and how of handling conflict at work. And it discusses the what not to do and how not to react, and then provides a thorough presentation of how to respond and why that response works. So it was really good and in-depth. And looking at the video, it appears to be a video for frontline staff to teach them how to manage conflict in real time, so it doesn't escalate anything beyond that. And the video goes on into why conflict resolution is important from a big picture perspective, and I think that's important for frontline employees to understand as well. But overall, the actors, it can be a little bit cheesy, but I think it's a good example of visual and audio learning tool for frontline employees for a training program. So a conflict in government department, a potential conflict that could arise in government would be like an employee's unhappiness with regarding resource allocation. For example, there might be contention over budget allocation for a different program within a department, which can lead to tension and disputes between employees and supervisors or even upper management. So dispute resolutions that can occur with this instance is level 1. There could be some informal communication channels between the disgruntled employee and their supervisor or upper management in regards to the budget and how it's allocated, so that the managers can give a little bit of background on how the budgets are allocated and what their priorities are, and hopefully that can resolve the dispute there. If it needs to go to level 2, it could go to mediation, which could the conversation could have a mediator, a third party, to facilitate the discussion, assist in finding a solution or resolution that satisfies both parties. So looking at the training recommendation for this case, conflict resolution skills could be a good training, emotional intelligence, budget management. All of these can be good trainings to help diffuse a dispute before it even arises. Some mechanisms to conduct that training, role playing is a very effective tool, especially when it comes to conflict management. Looking at some case studies too as well. If you're talking emotional intelligence, maybe looking at some case studies would be a good tool for that. And group discussions are always good, so that people can hear how other people's feel and some of their experiences and learn from those. And then maybe potentially have some guest speakers come in too. Maybe for the budget management part, you have the budget manager come in and talk about how budgets are allocated and distributed and so forth. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much, and I look forward to watching yours.